Theirs was a romance that blossomed in a fairy tale setting between a caring mother of two
Family was always her top priority.
and a handsome coworker that swept her off her feet.
He was the total package for her. And she said, he just makes me feel like nobody ever made me feel before.
But a savage attack would plunge their lives into darkness.
This was one of the bloodiest and most horrific crime scenes that people could remember.
You wouldn't kill a dog in the way that she was killed.
Investigators would ultimately uncover a trail of violence and deception.
It was shocking. I didn't know what to think at the time.
And leave everyone wondering, was this macabre execution the work of a sadistic stranger? Or was this monster a member of the victim's innermost circle?
There's this dark side of this guy that he's been hiding for years, and he released it in such a vicious way.
Saturday, January 17th, 2009, Niagara Falls, New York. The sun is dropping over this picturesque city, the self-proclaimed honeymoon capital of the world. But shortly after 5 p.m., emergency dispatchers receive a call from an apartment on the north end of town.
A man named Robert Johnson found his wife apparently dead on the kitchen floor of their apartment.
An officer is only blocks away when the call goes out from dispatch. He arrives within minutes, finds the front door open, and Robert Johnson cradling his wife in agony.
So what happened?
I don't know.
He was crying out to the police officers about the horrible discovery he just made. There was blood all over the floor.
She was stabbed multiple times.
In fact, some of the weapons used in the attack are still lodged in her body.
There were 2 knife blades broken off along the side of the torso.
I'm gonna need for you to go ahead and stand up. So we don't need to clear. I need for you to go ahead and stand up.
Within moments, other officers and paramedics arrive on the scene.
He was reacting so emotionally to having found his wife, Robert Johnson, had to be pulled away from the body.
As Robert is dragged away, EMTs rush in to check Kenya's vitals, but there's nothing they can do.
They quickly pronounced Kenya Johnson dead at the scene.
Even for seasoned detectives, this homicide is beyond the pale.
The crime scene was gruesome. And her head was cut very severely to the point that it was almost a decapitation.
But as officers attempt to console a shell-shocked Robert Johnson, nobody can imagine how this 32-year-old wife and mother fell victim to such a chilling crime. Kenya Bashana Thornton, or Kenya as she was known, grew up in Niagara Falls, the second of 4 children.
Kenya, she was the quiet one. She was real reserved, and she was a homebody.
She didn't party, she didn't drink, she didn't smoke, really didn't go out to clubs.
But as Kenya grew up, this good girl discovered she had a weakness for bad boys.
She liked street guys that were like in the fast lane. Someone total opposite of who she was is what she attracted.
Kenya's first love definitely fit the bill, and at 23, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Naomi. Although the relationship didn't last, Kenya worshipped her daughter.
Kenya was excited. She was happy to be having her first child.
In 2000, she landed a good job at a local call center.
Kenya made actually pretty good money there, doing customer service calls and whatnot.
While working at the call center, Kenya met a handsome, straight-laced coworker by the name of Robert Johnson.
How you doing today?
I'm good. You?
I'm all right, all right. How was work?
It was good. I can't complain.
Though Robert wasn't cut from the brash, street-tough cloth that Kenya found so attractive, he made it abundantly clear that he wanted to be more than just friends.
He sent her flowers at work. Robert would send her candy.
You'll be available around Saturday night?
Yeah, I'm free Saturday night.
I'm sure.
Yes!
But Kenya was excited.
Every time she see him, she told me she get butterflies in her stomach. She hasn't felt this way in so long. Like he'd kiss her, she just would float.
It wasn't just the way Robert treated Kenya that made her feel special. It was the way he treated her daughter, Naomi, too.
He was very accepting of her daughter that she already had. Robert loved her daughter just like he loved his own daughter.
Pretty soon, Robert and Kenya were inseparable. So much so that even when Kenya hit the town without Robert, she didn't stay out long.
We all got together and we went out. She left and went on her date with Robert. When you leave your girlfriends to go with a guy, then you're into the guy.
A couple months later, Kenya announced she was pregnant with Robert's child.
We told her, if you had to stay with us, you wouldn't be heading this way, but it was a good thing for her.
By the winter of 2004, Kenya and Robert were raising two beautiful young daughters.
He was so happy. She was such a good mother. Robert was just as happy. He was a very good father. He was very tender. He helped Kenya.
A few weeks later, the couple officially tied the knot.
I'm home. Hey!
So that made me happy because I had someone who I knew was going to be taking care of Kenya, my niece. And so it was exciting to see the young love that they both had for one another.
The couple decided Kenya would stay home for a while to be with the children. And as they settled into their new apartment, Robert and Kenya seemed to be living a life of pure bliss.
She was pretty much at home all the time at that point, and he was at work all day. She was just so happy. I never saw Kenya happy like that.
But Kenya had no intention of remaining a stay-at-home mom forever. In 2007, she enrolled at Bryant and Stratton College in nearby Buffalo.
She was going to school to be a medical assistant.
She loved it. Kenya was doing great. Dean's List, great grades. Awesome grades.
As for Robert, he was also working hard. He'd recently taken a new job as a sales rep with a local cable company, which required him to log a lot of time on the road, which soon put a strain on their marriage.
So now the partnership with them, with the kids and the workload and whatnot was kind of a little shaky then.
Things started looking up again in the fall of 2008, when Robert came home with some exciting news.
Sit down. I got a surprise for you.
No, I hate surprises.
You're going to like this.
He told Kenya that there was an opportunity to move to Atlanta and get a job there.
According to Robert, the job would be better pay with better hours.
It's caused us forced to relocate to Atlanta.
Shut up.
Yeah, so that means we got to move to Atlanta.
To her friends, Kenya seemed ecstatic.
Told me they were moving. She was excited. I was happy for her. If it was going to work out and they were going to move away, then that was good.
A loving marriage, two beautiful children, a future full of promise. It seemed Robert and Kenya were well on the road to a long and happy life together.
Kid!
Which made the grisly scene inside their home the night of January 17th all the more unthinkable.
People like a Kenya don't get murdered.
She would never do anything to hurt anybody. Who would do something to her like that?
If detectives are going to answer that question, they will need to unlock a vault filled with secrets. Secrets that would reveal this wasn't the first time a knife-wielding attacker had stormed into the Johnsons' home. Robert and Kenya Johnson began as co-workers and ended up as husband and wife. With two beautiful children and blossoming careers, their life seemed complete.
She told me, Robert, he just makes me feel like nobody ever made me feel before. And I'm like, I'm so happy for you. You finally found happiness.
But on January 17th, 2009, that happiness was torn asunder when Robert came home to find Kenya dead on the kitchen floor, her body riddled with stab wounds.
It was shocking. It was like unbelievable.
As first responders attempt to console a seemingly devastated Robert, investigators try to piece together what happened.
They counted 49 stab wounds in the body. Her throat had been cut basically from ear to ear. The police discovered that there were 3 knife blades stuck in the body of Kenya Johnson. And these knife blades had the handles broken off them, and broken knife handles were found at the scene.
As CSIs collect the knives and other physical evidence, news of this horrible tragedy spreads to the family.
It was devastating. I've never experienced that type of feeling or emotion that I experienced that day.
It was still like, this is not true. Somebody's going to call us back and tell us that this is a terrible joke.
I'm trying to think who in the world would do something like this to this person.
It's the same question police are asking. They start by questioning the man who called 911, Kenya's beloved husband.
My name is Robert Johnson.
Robert, what happened today?
Went to the barbershop.
He explains that the couple was at home most of the day, preparing for a party to celebrate their big move to Atlanta.
The whole family's gonna tell everybody?
Yes.
But according to Robert, the couple's daughters had a birthday party to attend as well.
I went to pick up the girls to bring them to the party because Kenya still had some running around to do before the party.
Robert says once the party preparation was over, he walked to the corner barbershop to get his hair cut. He returned an hour later, and that's when he found Kenya and called 911. To detectives, Robert seems to be telling the truth, and his story checks out with both Kenya's friends and the employees at the corner barbershop.
There was a very solid alibi. The barber said that he cut Robert's hair. Nothing of note about Robert.
I felt bad for him. I thought this poor guy came in and found his wife dead on the floor.
With Robert eliminated as a suspect, detectives wonder what happened in that fateful hour Kenya was home alone. One possibility is that Kenya was somehow the victim of a robbery gone wrong.
You notice anything missing in the house?
I don't know. I didn't get a chance to look.
Police checked the apartment to see if there was any evidence of a burglary. They found there was no sign of forced entry and nothing appeared to be missing or out of place.
The lack of stolen goods suggests robbery might not be the motive. The same goes for the vicious nature of the attack itself.
This was one of the bloodiest and most horrific crime scenes that people could remember.
It was extremely violent because of the nature of the attack. It seems unusual that some stranger would walk in and just stab someone multiple times.
If the murder is personal, who's responsible? Shocked neighbors describe the Johnsons as a nice, quiet couple beloved by all. What's more, no one reports seeing or hearing anything suspicious that day. With the investigation going nowhere, detectives again turn to Robert in hopes he can identify someone who might want Kenya dead.
They decided to take him down to police headquarters where it would be quieter.
Once down at the station, investigators noticed something they overlooked earlier that afternoon at the scene.
What's up with the blood on your shirt?
It's from holding Kenya.
They noticed that there was blood on his clothing.
But it's not the only blood they see.
There were some small cuts on Robert Johnson's right hand.
And on your hands?
This happened when I punched the rail and the police came.
So officer's gonna tell you what he needs to do, all right?
For sure.
Investigators ask him if he'd allow CSIs to take some samples for blood and DNA testing. Robert gladly agrees. As he's removing his clothes, investigators note even more blood.
A crime scene investigation officer noticed a spot of blood in the center of Robert's chest.
Robert gives police his consent to collect a sample of the blood. Detectives send the sample and Robert's bloody clothes to the crime lab for analysis. Robert also volunteers to give police his and Kenya's cell phones.
He was cooperative with them the entire time he was there.
But in order to determine who might want Kenya dead, detectives have to ask some difficult and deeply personal questions.
Now, Robert, neither one of y'all were having an affair.
No.
Robert describes a happy, healthy, and faithful marriage.
Well, help me out. Tell me who done this.
And that's when Robert gives police their first break.
I kind of got an idea.
Robert recounts a frightening ordeal that happened several months earlier when he was home alone with the kids.
Ain't no drugs in here, man. What is y'all? There ain't no drugs. Ain't no drugs.
Just 3 months before the homicide, there was a robbery and a home invasion at the Johnson home. Robert was home.
They made all the kids get in the closet. They told the kids, if you come out the closet, we're going to kill you.
Come on, man. Yeah.
Robert says the attackers demanded drugs.
He suspected the perpetrators had reason to believe that Mrs. Johnson's cousin, who lives across the street, might have some of his stash.
Robert tells police that when he explained to the attackers that there were no drugs in the house, one of the men attacked him. And though his injuries weren't fatal, they did leave scars.
There were scratches on his back because the intruders had knives.
Not only are the knives Robert described similar to the ones used in the attack on Kenya, a police report verifies his account of the assault. Unfortunately, no arrests were ever made.
That crime kind of went by the wayside and went unsolved.
Is it possible that Robert's assailants had returned in search of drugs again?
Someone may have been storing drugs in the house, and that may have been what the intruders were looking for.
Let me give you my card. If you have any questions, you give us a call, okay? No matter how small you think it might be, all right?
They questioned him there for 3 hours before letting him go. It seemed like they were considering him to be a shocked husband who had discovered a horrible crime had been committed against his wife.
But as detectives begin hunting down these mysterious home invaders, evidence will surface that steers them in a different direction and exposes the details of a forbidden relationship, one so tawdry nobody in the Johnsons' inner circle could have ever seen coming.
Shocking. Still disbelief to this day. Still can't believe what happened.
Police in Niagara Falls are struggling to solve a shocking murder. Kenya Johnson was stabbed nearly 50 times and left for dead in the home she shared with her husband and 2 young daughters.
The crime scene was gruesome.
Who could do this?
Kenya's husband, Robert, has just informed police of a violent home invasion that took place at their apartment 3 months prior to the murder.
Ain't no drug. Let me Ain't no drug.
Get the girls, man.
Someone had broken into the house and made the kids get into the closet.
The similarities between this attack and the attack on Kenya are undeniable.
Or 2 robbers came in and tried to look for some drugs with knives.
And based on Robert's statement, they appear to have been carried out by drug dealers targeting the wrong residents.
That's all I heard. Like, there was a cousin of hers that had a stash.
Maybe someone was targeting this home for whatever reason. They tried back in October, and then they thought when Robert leaves to get his hair cut that they've got free reign in the home, and then they're shocked when someone's in there, and that was a Kenya in there.
So tell me about Kenya.
Looking for answers, police track down Kenya's cousin and question him about his involvement with drugs. He denies the allegations and claims to have no knowledge of the identity of the assailants.
Any of that stuff going on in the neighborhood? Not to my knowledge. I mean, I'm hearing out every day, and, I don't see anything out of the ordinary.
As for any potential involvement in drugs on Kenya's part, friends and family are skeptical.
To think that this could have been done to her by a drug dealer, it just didn't match. Kenya didn't have those kinds of enemies. She was not ever involved in a lifestyle of drugs.
Investigators are having a hard time connecting the dots. But if drug dealers aren't to blame, who is?
Nobody goes and kills somebody that they don't know and stab them that many times. And the knife blades and the neck thing and all that, this was personal.
Detectives dig deeper into Kenya's personal life, hoping to find something, anything that will help unravel this mystery. They reach out to Kenya's older sister, Africa.
Can you describe your relationship with your sister?
We were close.
She knew Kenya like no other.
Kenya would, tell me everything. I mean, everything. I talked to her every single day on the phone, 2, 3, 4 times a day.
And as Africa recalls some of those conversations, a new person of interest begins to emerge. A former boyfriend named Letario Humphrey. According to Africa, much like many of Kenya's previous suitors, Letario was a bit rough around the edges.
Did Kenya like street guys?
Kind of like street guys, yeah. The bad boys.
Letario, he was like a street guy as well.
While dating Kenya back in 2002, Letario was arrested and sent to prison for drugs.
Their relationship kind of fizzled off after he went to jail.
Even though Kenya had been with Robert ever since, she kept Letario in her heart. And when he was released from prison 5 months prior, in September 2008, Kenya paid Letario a visit.
She said they had went out to lunch a few times, her and Letario.
But were Kenya and Letario having more than just lunch? According to Africa, that was the rumor, at least among Kenya's girlfriends.
And it wasn't shocking because I knew that Letario still had feelings for her, Kenya.
However, Kenya's sister isn't so sure these rumors are true.
Well, I mean, her friends used to play around about them having a relationship.
He was kind of like her confidant. She said, Africa, he's just somebody that listens to me and we talk to each other. She never, ever said to me that they started sleeping together again, but is it possible? Yes.
For investigators, Africa's statement triggers a new theory. Is it possible that Kenya cheated on Robert with Letario, only to put the brakes on the affair once it became clear that she and Robert would soon be moving to Atlanta? And did Letario decide that if he couldn't have Kenya, nobody could? Detectives track down Letario Humphrey and bring him in for questioning.
Did you sleep with her? I mean, she came over a couple times. Did you sleep with her? Yes, I slept with her.
He was freed from prison on September 10th, 2008, and told the police that very soon after that, he resumed his relationship with Kenya Johnson.
He was there for her, talked to her. He just made her happy.
Detectives press Letario about Kenya's murder, but Letario's adamant he had nothing to do with his lover's brutal death.
So let me tell you this. You had nothing to do with that? Is that what you're saying?
I had nothing to do with it, man. That's crazy if you think I did. I loved her.
Given Letario's lengthy criminal history, detectives are skeptical.
He had served prison time. He had several drug convictions. He was recently released from prison.
But without any hard evidence, investigators have no choice but to release him and turn back to Kenya's sister Africa for more intel on Letario, who makes another startling revelation.
Robert had access to Kenya's phone, and she did tell me a while back that he found some text messages.
Text messages that demonstrated just how close Kenya and Letario still were. Kenya then informed Robert that she and the kids wouldn't be making the move to Atlanta with him, and that the going-away party she was planning was only for him.
She was not going. She was staying here in the city.
It would be much easier for her to break away from him once he was out of the picture or out of the city.
Investigators are floored. By all accounts, Kenya and Robert seemed like they had the perfect marriage. But Africa informs them that the marriage was broken long before Letario came back into the picture.
Kenya and Robert's relationship, I think it started to go bad before Letario came home from jail. They just were having problems in their relationship.
In fact, Kenya had secretly complained to her for years that she was unhappy with Robert and that they were no longer intimate.
No, he was even sleeping in his bedroom.
Kenya had told Robert, I don't think this is going to work. I just don't want to be with you anymore.
An alleged affair, a rocky marriage, plans for a separation. Africa's statement is a stark contrast to the picture Robert Johnson described to police. Investigators can't help but wonder, what other information is Robert Johnson hiding? But in an effort to learn the whole truth, detectives will unearth more lies and make another shocking discovery. Kenya wasn't the only one hiding a secret love affair.
We didn't know who she was. We didn't know anything about her. We just knew that it was another woman.
It's now been more than 48 hours since 32-year-old Kenya Johnson was found brutally stabbed to death in her kitchen. On the surface, it seems Kenya and her husband Robert were the perfect couple. But new information suggests the marriage was in trouble, and Kenya was having an affair with an old flame.
Kenya was reportedly having an affair with a man named Letario Humphrey, who was a former boyfriend of hers.
Not only was Kenya allegedly having an affair, but contrary to what Robert originally told police, her husband seemed to know all about it. Detectives now believe this knowledge might just be a motive for murder.
The homicide may have resulted in part from Robert's jealousy over Kenya's relationship with Letario Humphrey.
There's just one problem with that theory: Robert's airtight alibi.
There was a barber shop near the Jordan Gardens apartment, and the barber, Fred Gilmer, said that Robert Johnson arrived in his barber shop to get his hair cut.
We need to find up this number, this 555-1969. It shows up a lot on his records.
Detectives decide to take a look at Robert's cell phone, which he gave police on the night of the murder.
I want to get the phone.
At first, nothing seems out of the ordinary. But as investigators pour through the records, something jumps out. On the morning of the murder, Robert was communicating with somebody listed as my wifey. But it wasn't Kenya's number.
Robert was having contact via text message and phone call with the other woman.
I was like really shocked. Like, oh my God.
Who was this woman, and why was Robert referring to her as his wifey? A search of records indicates the phone number belongs to a woman named Lakeisha Davis. And when detectives learn Lakeisha is working at a fast food restaurant in nearby Buffalo...
Lakeisha? Hey, what if I talk to you this man? I'm Investigator Davis, Investigator Clemens. Have a seat right over here. Okay.
They decide to drop in for a surprise visit. Detectives ask Lakeisha how she knows Robert. What she tells them is jaw-dropping.
Do you know Robert Johnson?
Of course, he's my fiancé.
We found out that Robert had a whole fiancé. He was engaged to somebody else. He brought her a ring and everything.
We found out Robert was, I guess, seeing another girl. I was shocked. I thought they loved each other, that Kenya and Robert had a loving relationship.
While it's certainly shocking, news of Robert's engagement to Lakeisha Davis seems to undermine the theory that Robert murdered Kenya in a fit of jealousy.
If you find out your spouse is having an affair, but you're having one also, I think that cuts against any rage motive.
But what about Robert's new fiancée, Lakeisha Davis? Could she have found out about Kenya and murdered her in order to get rid of the competition?
You see love turn into murder. The people who do this have a very unusual way of showing love. They try to get the person all to themselves. They don't want to share them with anybody else. And things turn violent very easily.
But Lakeisha Davis has an airtight alibi as well.
Where were you on Saturday, the 17th?
Saturday the 17th. Actually, I was here working because I work the weekends.
And not long after confirming Lakeisha's alibi, police receive a forensic report from their CSI team.
The police officers found blood in a number of different locations in the apartment. One of them was on the wall of a staircase.
In addition to the staircase, CSIs have also discovered additional blood evidence in a downstairs washroom.
What they found was when they tested for DNA inside the sink trap in the wash basin, they found a Kenya Johnson's DNA.
The CSI team also recovered one more murder weapon.
They found another bloody knife that was bent inside a kitchen drawer of the apartment.
The additional murder weapon and the new blood evidence in the sink suggests someone tried to clean up the crime scene. But the most critical evidence from the CSI report is the DNA test from the blood sample taken from Robert's chest.
And it matched to Kenya's blood.
Robert initially told police that it was his blood from a scrape he sustained moving furniture. If he was innocent of Kenya's murder, why would he lie? To answer that question, detectives bring Robert in for another interview.
Tell me the truth. What happened to Kenya? What you mean tell you the truth? I've been telling you the truth.
They said they wanted to ask him some more questions. And in the course of a 2-hour interview, they ended up basically accusing him of killing his wife.
It's on you. We got her DNA off you.
Robert sticks to his original story, that he was at the barber shop at the time of the crime. Though there are eyewitness accounts corroborating that statement, detectives know physical evidence doesn't lie. They begin grilling Robert about the knife CSIs have recovered from the drawer.
Why would the killer put the knife in the drawer?
I don't know.
They wanted to know why a burglar, if that's who killed a Kenya Johnson, would put the murder weapon back in a drawer. Johnson replied, I don't know. A dumb one?
Enough of this. Robert Johnson, you're under arrest for the murder of Kenya Johnson. Stand up.
It's not the answer investigators are looking for. So on February 17th, nearly a month after investigators encountered a tearful Robert Johnson, cradling the blood-soaked body of his slain wife, he is officially charged with murder. Kenya's friends and family are blown away.
Everything is running through my head. Everything is like, why? How come? Why would why would he do this to her?
I'm shocked. It was a disturbing, confusing time. He's still the husband of my niece. And in that moment, you want to believe that there's no way he could have done this.
But as the tawdry details of this case emerge, the blood evidence, the affairs, that shock turns to rage.
I'm literally thinking about her, Kenya, in that moment and saying to myself, it's going to be okay. Justice, we're going to get justice for you.
But getting justice for Kenya won't be easy. And when the case goes to trial, the defense will play a trump card that will rock the courtroom and beg the question, is the wrong man on trial for Kenya Johnson's murder? Niagara Falls, New York is described as a lover's paradise. But on January 17th, 2009, it became the scene to one of a gruesome crime. Kenya Johnson, wife and mother of two beautiful daughters, was stabbed 49 times and nearly decapitated in the kitchen of her apartment.
It was shocking. I mean, you lose people in your life every day, but never would I thought that it would be like this.
After a lengthy investigation, police have charged Kenya's husband, Robert, with the murder. But as the case heads to trial, Robert remains adamant that detectives have charged the wrong man with murder.
He said, I didn't do this to her, Africa. I promise you I didn't. I said, well, Robert, I must be honest with you. I believe you did it. I do. And justice will prevail.
On September 22, 2009, opening arguments begin. Prosecutors start by laying out their theory about what happened. They assert that even though Robert was carrying on an illicit affair of his own, when he discovered his wife was cheating on him and that she no longer planned to join him in Atlanta, he snapped.
What you mean you can't go to Atlanta?
I'm tired.
You tired of what? Cheating on me?
Cheating on you?
Yeah. How long you been sleeping with her?
What are you talking
How long?
about?
She may have said, I am cheating on you and I don't want to be with you, or said something to Bruce's ego and he lost it.
Prosecutors claim that Robert grabbed a set of knives and began viciously stabbing Kenya over and over, 49 times in all, leaving several broken blades in her body.
There's a lot of jealousy, a lot of rage.
Robert Johnson wanted, in effect, revenge for his wife cheating on him and for, in his opinion, not really loving him all these years.
According to prosecutors, once Robert realized Kenya was dead, he headed to the basement and attempted to wash away the blood. While doing so, Robert realized he needed an alibi, so he changed clothes and made a mad dash to the corner barbershop.
It's crazy. You can't possibly be in your right mind to murder someone, clean yourself up, leave the house, leave the person there, and go get a haircut.
After his haircut, Robert returned home, called 911, and then cradled his wife's body in his arms until police and EMTs arrived.
Prosecutor Lisa Berry told the jury he had to come up with an alibi, and he had to come up with one in a hurry.
I believe wholeheartedly that he's done this. It was clear to us more then, as she laid it out to us, exactly kind of what took place.
When it's his turn, Robert's defense attorney, Michael McNellis, argues that the real guilty party is the Niagara Falls police, who in their rush to judgment arrested an innocent man.
The police honed in on Robert Johnson right off the bat and never looked anywhere else.
McNellis also argues that Robert's barbershop alibi is indeed airtight, and that his client never had the opportunity to kill his wife. As proof, they offer the testimony of the barber, Fred Gilmer.
Gilmer said that Johnson arrived in his barbershop and waited 15 minutes and then had about 20 minutes in the chair for the haircut.
The mathematics of the time doesn't comport with Robert being the killer.
Prosecutors counter by asserting the walk from the Johnson residence to the barbershop doesn't take nearly as long as the defense suggests.
The barber shop is only 2 or 3 blocks from the apartment where the Johnsons lived.
But according to prosecutors, more important than the timeline is the fact that Kenya's blood and DNA was found on Robert's clothes and body, as well as in the basement sink.
By the time all the evidence came out, there was no way. Everyone believed that he did it.
Defense attorney McNellis counters that the DNA on Robert's chest and clothes were transferred when he was tearfully cradling his wife's blood-soaked body. He also provides a possible explanation for the evidence found in the downstairs sink basin.
There was the washing machine that was washing right into that sink basin. So as people's clothes are washed, there's traces of DNA that can spill into that sink trap.
That's when defense attorney McNellis drops a forensic bombshell and introduces evidence he feels proves his client's innocence: the socks Robert was wearing the day of the crime.
Among the items of clothing the police took from Robert Johnson was his socks. Those socks were later tested for DNA, and they found a Kenya Johnson's DNA and Robert Johnson's DNA, and the DNA of a third person whom they were unable to identify.
There is a third DNA profile that, to me, was picked up when Robert's walking through the blood.
McNellis contends that the unknown DNA belongs to the real killer, one of the intruders who first attacked Robert months earlier. It's an argument that seems to plant the seed of reasonable doubt.
They did try to paint the picture there could have been a third person there. You want to give everybody the benefit of a doubt.
On October 5th, 2009, both sides rest their case. 3 hours later, the jury announces they've reached a verdict.
Robert had no emotion. He just sat there.
I really believe that Robert's going to get his just due in the end.
The 4 men and 8 women find Robert Johnson guilty of first-degree murder.
It was like this sigh of relief came over me. He's going to go to jail now. He's going to get, what he deserves.
We may not ever have a Kenya with us again, but at least we have justice for her murder.
The judge gives Robert a sentence of 25 years to life. But before Kenya's family can feel even an ounce of victory, the case is rocked by another bombshell, one that suggests the guilty verdict just handed down is far from a sure thing. The roller coaster trial of Robert Johnson for the murder of his wife Kenya has just ended with a guilty verdict and a sentence of 25 years to life.
So we're standing there and we're listening, and when we hear that verdict come back as guilty, part of you wants to rejoice because he is found guilty. Justice is being served.
But the celebration is short-lived. Not long after the verdict is read, Robert's defense attorney, Michael McNellis, files an appeal, claiming he now has proof that his client is innocent.
McNellis said that he had an affidavit from a teenager named Robert Thousand, who had been an inmate in the Niagara County Jail. Thousand wrote in his affidavit that another inmate by the name of Thomas Pryor had confessed to killing a Kenya Johnson.
Moreover, Thomas Pryor is revealed to have been one of the suspects initially investigated in the home invasion that occurred at the Johnson residence 3 months prior to the murder.
I asked the judge basically to throw out the verdict, reopen the case, and start all over.
Kenya's family is in utter disbelief.
I don't know really how to respond, and so I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
On February 17, 2010, the judge calls a special hearing to determine if Robert Thousand is a credible witness.
He took the stand and verified everything that he said in the letter. He maintained all the way through that Thomas Pryor's words were that Thomas Pryor went in and committed the crime.
But when pressed, Robert Thousand is unable to provide any additional details about Thomas Pryor or the murder of Kenya Johnson. In short, the judge isn't buying it.
The judge didn't believe that Robert Thousand's information was credible. That was his assessment.
The judge said both his body language and his intonation gave him away as a liar.
On May 22, 2010, the court upholds Robert Johnson's guilty verdict and his sentence of 25 years to life. For Kenya's family, it's a bittersweet victory.
My friend's gone. Africa's sister's gone. Kofi's sister's gone.
And once the allegations of illicit engagements and extramarital affairs are stripped away, one simple tragedy remains. A single vicious attack carried out in a fit of rage robbed 2 young girls of both their parents.
Children's children are probably hurt the most because now they don't have their mother or their father.
It's terrible. And it doesn't matter how, it could be 10 years from now and it'll be terrible. What can you do? Nothing. Nothing at all.
The Architects of Deception, a novelization of shadow lives and stolen identities. Prologue, The Mask. The mirror does not lie, but the man staring into it does. In the soft glow of a California morning, 1979, the man who called himself Dr. Gerald Barnes adjusted his stethoscope. It was a prop, though a functional one. To the world, it was a symbol of healing, of authority, of a life dedicated to the preservation of pulse and breath. To Gerald Barnbaum, it was the final piece of a costume he had been perfecting since he left Chicago in a cloud of disgrace. He liked the weight of the lab coat. It had a specific stiffness, a clinical white that suggested purity. He practiced his doctor smile in the glass worm, reassuring, just the right amount of paternal concern. He wasn't just a pharmacist with a revoked license anymore. He was an actor who had found the role of a lifetime, and the stage was the Pacific Southwest Medical Group. 400 miles away, the real Dr. Gerald Barnes was waking up in Stockton, unaware that his name, his hard-earned credentials, and his very soul had been harvested by a ghost. Chapter 1, The Assistant's Shadow. Rick D'Alessandro liked his boss. That was the problem. In the busy hallways of the Orange County Clinic, Dr. Barnes was a breath of fresh air. He was a likable little guy. As Rick would often describe him, quick with a joke, easy to talk to, and possessed of a charismatic energy that made patients feel better before he even examined them. Morning, Rick, Barnes said, breezing past the reception desk with a stack of charts. Beautiful day to save some lives, isn't it? Rick smiled, checking the clipboard. We've got a full house, Doc, 25 scheduled, and the walk-ins are already lining up. The more the merrier, Barnes replied, his eyes twinkling behind scholarly spectacles. Rick watched him go, a small frown creeping onto his face. There was something about the way Barnes handled the more complex cases, a certain hesitation, a reliance on routine prescriptions. But in a high-volume clinic, efficiency was king. Barnes was efficient. He was the director. He was the man with the answers. Or so everyone thought. Chapter 2, The December Chill. December 26, 1979. The holiday spirit was a fading echo, replaced by the gray reality of a winter morning. John Mackenzie walked into the clinic, and even from across the room, Rick could see the man was vibrating with exhaustion. At 29, Mackenzie should have been in the prime of his life, but he looked like a candle guttering in the wind. His skin was sallow, his eyes sunken, and his gait was unsteady. I don't feel right, Rick, Mackenzie whispered, his voice dry as parchment. Thirsty, so thirsty, and dizzy. It's like the floor won't stay still. Rick ushered him into exam room 3. The doctor will see you in a moment. John, hang in there. When Barnes entered the room, he didn't see a man on the brink of a diabetic coma. He saw a script to be followed. He listened to the complaints: excessive urination, dry mouth, the loss of equilibrium, inner ear disturbance. Barnes pronounced with the practiced ease of a veteran clinician. A touch of vertigo happens after the holiday stress, diet, the usual. He scribbled on a pad, an anti-vertigo drug, something to stop the spinning. But the thirst, Doc, Mackenzie asked, clutching a paper cup of water like it was a holy relic. Your body is reacting to the imbalance, Barnes said, patting him on the shoulder. Take the pills. We'll run some blood work just to be safe, but you'll be fine by New Year's. Barnes sent him home. He didn't check for the sweet scent of ketones on the man's breath. He didn't notice the classic signs of a body eating itself. He had 39 other patients to see. He had a role to play, and John Mackenzie was just a bit player in the grand drama of Gerald Barnbaum's ego. Chapter 3, 1200. The lab results came back the next day. Dr. Barnes was off, enjoying the perks of his stolen prestige. Rick D'Alessandro was the one who opened the folder. He expected the usual slightly elevated cholesterol, maybe a minor infection. Instead, he saw a number that made his heart stop. Glucose, 1,200 milligrams DL. Normal was 80 to 100. 1,200 was a death sentence. It was a level so high the blood was practically syrup. Oh, God, Rick whispered. He didn't wait for a supervisor. He didn't wait for Barnes. He grabbed the phone and dialed Mackenzie's number. Ring, ring, ring. No answer. He called the emergency contact Tan ex-wife. She hadn't seen him. He called the other numbers on the chart. Silence. A cold dread settled in Rick's stomach. He looked at the chart again. Barnes had prescribed an anti-vertigo medication. He had sent a man an active, acute diabetic crisis home with a pill for dizziness. I need the police, Rick told the dispatcher, his voice trembling. Garden Grove PD. We have a patient. I think he's in danger. Chapter 4. The kitchen floor. The officers broke the door in. The apartment was quiet, the air heavy with the stillness of a life interrupted. They found John Mackenzie in the kitchen. He was lying on the floor, his body cold, his eyes staring at a ceiling he couldn't see. In his hand, clutched tightly like a failed talisman, was the prescription Dr. Barnes had given him. The anti-vertigo drug. The 29-year-old had collapsed into a coma and died alone. His body starving for insulin while he followed the expert advice of a man who didn't know the difference between a balance disorder and a metabolic catastrophe. When Rick heard the news, the grief was quickly overtaken by a burning, incandescent rage. A doctor might make a mistake, but this felt like a void where knowledge should have been. Rick sat in the quiet of the empty clinic that evening. He looked at the framed diploma on Barnes's wall. He looked at the medical board registration. Something felt hollow. Something felt wrong. He picked up the phone and called the medical board in Sacramento. I need to verify the identity of a Dr. Gerald Barnes, Rick said. Could you fax over his identification photo and file? The fax machine hummed to life. The paper slid out, inch by agonizing inch. Rick watched as the image formed. The man in the photo was older. Different features. A different bone structure. The address listed was in Stockton, 400 miles away. Rick looked at the photo, then at the empty chair in the director's office. You're not him, Rick whispered to the shadows. Who the hell are you? Chapter 5. The Pharmacist of Chicago. The investigation into the man who would be king of the clinic revealed a history built on layers of deception. Before he was Dr. Barnes, he was Gerald Barnbaum. In Chicago, he had been a pharmacist, a man who understood the chemistry of medicine, but lacked the ethics of it. He had been caught in a Medicaid scam, a greedy little grift that cost him his license. But Barnbaum was a performer. He had been a theater student in college. He knew how to project a character. If he couldn't be a pharmacist, he would be something better, something more powerful. He had called the medical board, posing as the real Dr. Barnes. He told them he had lost his duplicate license and was opening a clinic in Los Angeles. They, trusting the name and the professional tone, mailed him the credentials without a second thought. It was that easy. A phone call, a lie, and a white coat. On August 8th, 1980, the curtain finally fell. The police arrived not to discuss a patient, but to escort the leading man to a cell. The charge: practicing medicine without a license. And, more importantly, manslaughter. But as Gerald Barnbaum sat in the back of the cruiser, he wasn't crying. He was already thinking about his next role. Chapter 6, the second act. Prison was supposed to be the end of the story. For the family of John Mackenzie, 3 years felt like a slap in the face. For the real Dr. Barnes, the damage to his name was a wound that wouldn't heal. But Gerald Barnbaum was a man of habit. 18 months later, he was out on good behavior. He walked out of the prison gates, looked at the California sun, and realized he didn't know how to be anyone else. He didn't go back to Chicago. He didn't find a trade. He went to a different city, found a different clinic, and put on a different white coat. He became Dr. Gerald Barnes again. He even got married. Lisa Roberts thought she had found the perfect husband. He was a doctor, a provider, a romantic who showered her with flowers and took her to concerts. He earned a six-figure salary. He was the medical director of a Los Angeles facility. I'm so proud of you, Gerald, she would say as she kissed him goodbye in the morning. It's all for you, darling, he would reply. He lived this life for years. He saw patients. He ordered tests. He performed physicals for FBI agents. He was so good at the role that even the government's premier law enforcement agency didn't check the credentials of the man sticking a tongue depressor into their throats. Until a Christmas party in 1996, Rick D'Alessandro was there. He had moved on with his life, but he never forgot the face of the man who killed John Mackenzie. He was standing near the punch bowl when he saw a familiar, likable little guy wearing a name tag. Hi, I'm Dr. Barnes. The world stopped. Rick felt the blood rush to his ears. It had been 16 years, but the mask was identical. Hi, Rick, the man said, his voice as smooth as silk. How are you doing? Rick stared at him, his fists clenching. Well, Gerald, I'm not doing too well, because you're doing the same thing you did back in the 70s. The doctor didn't flinch. He gave a small, sad smile. Well, you know, Rick, this is all just a big mistake. He walked away, disappeared into the crowd, and then disappeared from the city. But the FBI was now on the trail. Chapter 7, The Highway Ghost. While Barnbaum was a predator of the clinic, a different kind of architect was emerging in the heart of the Midwest. David Brankel didn't wear a white coat. He wore expensive suits. He drove a black BMW. He was a businessman, a developer, a man with a vision. In Bloomington, Indiana, Brankel was the man to know. He rented an office from Phil and Bonnie Sperry, claiming to run an architectural and construction firm called ACR. Architecture, construction. And what's the R for? David. Phil Sperry asked one afternoon over coffee. Brankel smiled, a smooth, practiced expression that reached his eyes but didn't warm them. Results, Phil, always results. But the R stood for robbery. Brankel was a man of dualities. Sunday through Wednesday, he was a family man in Vincennes, living in a rented house with a wife and a young son. Thursday through Saturday, he was a ghost on the interstate. He would drive his black BMW, a car he couldn't afford, to grocery store banks, tucked inside Winn-Dixies and Meejers. He used a simple disguise, a fishing hat, a mustache, a pair of tan coveralls. He would walk up to the teller and hand over a note. I have a gun. Be quiet. Go home alive. He was efficient. He was calm. He was the interstate bank mart bandit IBM. And he was driving a path of financial destruction across 6 states. He had an accomplice, a woman named Donna Hewins. She was the Bonnie to his Clyde, a waitress he met at a club who fell for the thrill and the dapper suits. She sat in the idling BMW while David walked into the stores, a scanner in his hand, listening to the police frequencies. He was playing a game with the world. He was the successful entrepreneur by day and the most prolific bank robber in the region by night. He believed he was smarter than the detectives, smarter than the FBI, and certainly smarter than the people he scammed. Chapter 8, Operation Intercept. Detective Larry Duncan of the Louisville Metro Police was a man of maps. He sat in his office, staring at a cluster of pins that traced the path of the IBM bandit. Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati. The pins followed the interstates like a trail of breadcrumbs. He's using the highways as his veins, Duncan muttered to his colleagues, Joe Schley and Agent Freihofer. He jumps on the I-65 or the I-71. and he's gone before the first cruiser arrives. Duncan had a theory. The bandit wasn't just a criminal, he was a commuter. He was likely based in Indiana, traveling out to hit targets and returning to his safe zone. In 2003, Duncan launched Operation Intercept. He placed undercover officers inside 5 target banks. He coordinated with 1,200 officers across the city. The trap was set. On September 6th, the IBM bandit struck hit number 35. The radio crackled. Operation Intercept. Operation Intercept. The call was too loud, too frantic. David Brankel, sitting in his BMW with the scanner hissing in his ear, heard the panic in the officer's voice. He didn't head for the interstate. He took the back roads. He slipped through the residential streets, weaving like a snake through the tall grass of the suburbs. Duncan watched the black sedan vanish on the horizon of his map. "He's gone," Duncan said, leaning back in his chair. "He's listening. He's always listening." Chapter 9, The Final Curb. Luck is a finite resource. For David Brankel, it ran out on a stretch of Highway 45 in December 2003. He was driving too fast. He was always driving too fast. He cut off a vehicle, nearly sending it into oncoming traffic. Unfortunately for Brankel, the man behind the wheel was Bloomington Detective Kevin Hill. The chase that followed was a symphony of screaming tires and 100-mile-per-hour desperation. Brankel disregarded stop signs. He ran people off the road. He was a man who had built a life on the belief that he could never be caught. And now the reality was catching up in his rearview mirror. He escaped the immediate pursuit, but he left behind a clue. He had dropped his license. Days later, in Vincennes, the Indiana State Police surrounded a house at 1919 Hickory. Brankel tried to run one last time. He abandoned his young son in the car of final, chilling testament to his narcissism, and fled on foot through an apartment complex. He tripped on a curb. The interstate bank mart bandit, the man who had hit 43 banks and stolen $136,000 fell face first into the dirt. As Sergeant Greg Winkler clicked the handcuffs into place, a small knife fell out of Brankel's pocket. It just fell out. Brankel stammered, the smooth businessman gone, replaced by a shivering, pathetic figure. I wasn't going to hurt you. Chapter 10, The Interrogation Room. The two worlds of deception met in the cold fluorescent light of an interrogation room. In one city, Gerald Barnbaum was being sentenced to 12.5 years, weeping about his prostate cancer and his grandchildren, even as the judge warned that he would do it all again if given a chance. In Vincennes, David Brankel sat across from Larry Duncan. I'm the guy you're looking for, Brankel said, leaning forward as if he were about to offer a business deal. I'm the IBM bandit. Call Louisville. Call Cincinnati. They'll want to talk to me. For 6 hours, Brankel talked. He told them about the first robbery. He told them about Donna. He told them about his mother, who told him he couldn't even mow the lawn right. He was a man who wanted to be the most successful bank robber of all time because he couldn't be anything else. He showed no remorse for the people he had cheated, the Sperrys, the Logans. He claimed he did legitimate work for them. He was a sociopath who had absolute no conscience. Chapter 11, The FBI's Doctor. Murray Konjovsky, an FBI agent, stared at the file on her desk in disbelief. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. The Bureau had a contract with a clinic in Los Angeles to perform employment physicals. For years, the man sitting in that office, the one who had checked the heartbeats and reflexes of over 100 FBI agents, was a man the government had already put behind bars. Gerald Barnbaum hadn't just fooled a clinic. He had fooled the premier investigative agency in the world. While the Bureau scrambled to assess the damage, Lisa Roberts sat in her living room, the space that used to be filled with the warmth of a loving husband. She now referred to him as the Never Was. I didn't know his real name, she whispered to the investigators. I didn't know his real age. Every night I shared a bed with a ghost. I trusted him with my life, my family, my future. Lisa realized that Barnbaum hadn't just stolen a name from a doctor in Stockton. He had stolen the years she could never get back. He had been a master of the mundane, playing the role of the devoted husband so convincingly that she never questioned why he never talked about his childhood or why he was so vague about his medical school days. Chapter 12. The Bus Ticket Blunder. In the world of bureaucracy, sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. After his 1996 conviction, Barnbaum was serving his time in a federal facility. In 2000, he was scheduled for a transfer because he had been categorized as a low-security inmate, decision that baffled Agent Kondrowski. The Bureau of Prisons didn't use a secure transport. They gave Gerald Barnbaum a bus ticket. They told him to report to a facility in Illinois. Barnbaum took the ticket, walked out of the prison gates, and immediately vanished. He didn't go to Illinois. He went back to the only life he knew how to live. A month later, U.S. Marshal Joseph Exner walked into a North Hollywood clinic. He had a hunch. He didn't look for a man in a jumpsuit. He looked for a man in a lab coat. Gerald Barnbaum. Exner called out. A man stepped out of an exam room. He was wearing a crisp white coat, the stethoscope draped around his neck. He looked at the marshals and smiled that practiced clinical smile. You guys are good, Barnbaum said, turning around to be handcuffed. He had been back on the job for weeks, seeing patients, prescribing controlled substances, and collecting a paycheck as Dr. Gerald Barnes. He was 63 years old, and he was already planning his next comeback. Chapter 13, The $9 Million Lesson. The fallout from Barnbaum's final act at Executive Health Group was catastrophic. Carl Jansen, an executive at Atlantic Richfield, had been one of Dr. Barnes's patients. He had undergone a full physical, including a prostate exam performed by a man with no medical training. I saw him on the evening news the next day. Jansen recalled, the disgust still evident in his voice. handcuffs, the evening news. I had trusted this man with my health, my privacy. Jansen wasn't alone. Nearly 500 former patients joined a civil lawsuit. The evidence revealed a shocking lack of diligence. Executive Health Group hadn't performed even a basic background check. If they had, they would have seen the multiple felony convictions and the trail of dead and duped patients. The company was forced to settle for over $9 million. It was a price paid for greed and negligence, and it put the firm out of business. But for the victims, the money didn't erase the feeling of being violated by an imposter. Chapter 14, The Pet Store Dream. While Barnbaum was a ghost in the clinic, David Brankel was a predator in the pet store. In Vincennes, Alan and Becky Logan were the embodiment of the American dream. They ran Logan's Wet Pets and More, a beloved local institution. They wanted to expand, to build a family entertainment complex called Logan's Great Escape. When they met David Brankel, they thought their prayers had been answered. He looked like a gift from God, Becky remembered. He had the suits, the Vanguard Capital marketing materials, the timetables. He looked legit. Brankel charged them a $3,500 retainer and $500 a month. But his most chilling tactic involved his young son, Michael. On the first of every month, Brankel would walk into the pet store holding Michael's hand. He would have the boy hand the bill to Alan Logan. It was a prop, just like Barnbaum's stethoscope. The presence of the child created an atmosphere of trust, a sense that Brankel was a family man just like them. It's sad, Alan said years later, he used that boy to rob us. He had no conscience. Brankel was living a triple life, the devoted father in Vincennes, the entrepreneur in Bloomington, and the serial bank robber on the interstate. He was a sociopath who viewed people as meal tickets, and he didn't care who he stepped on to fund his dapper lifestyle. Chapter 15, The Last Act. In 2004, the curtain finally closed, at least for a while. David Brankel received 21 years in federal prison for 43 counts of bank robbery. Donna Hewins, the waitress who became his getaway driver, received house arrest and probation. Brankel owed $175,000 in restitution, but for the Logans and the Sperrys, not a dime would ever return. Brankel maintained to the end that his work for them was legitimate. In Minnesota, at Vasica Federal Prison, Gerald Barnbaum, now in his 70s, sat in his cell. His projected release was 2018. Investigators who had tracked him for decades were not under any illusions. His age won't make a difference, one detective noted. He's a very dangerous human being. When he walks through those doors, he will be a physician again. He doesn't know how to be anyone else. The architects of deception had been dismantled, but their legacy remained in the lives they shattered and the trust they broke. They were men who proved that in a world of credentials and suits, a mask can be more powerful than the truth. As long as there is greed, and as long as there is a desire to believe in the perfect professional, there will be men like Barnbaum and Brankel waiting in the shadows, ready to put on the coat and start the show all over again. To be continued. Red Bones. Book 1 of the Shetland Mysteries. Prologue, The Wind and the Wire. The wind across the Shetland Islands did not blow. It howled. It was a living, breathing entity that tore off the North Sea, tasting of salt, ancient ice, and bitter secrets. It scoured the treeless hills of Bresse, rattling the corrugated iron roofs of the old crofts and bending the heather until it snapped. In the deep, suffocating darkness of a Tuesday night, Mima Wilson sat in her armchair, listening to it. The fire in the hearth had burned down to glowing peat embers, casting long, wavering shadows across the faded floral wallpaper. Mima was a woman carved from the landscape itself, weathered, unyielding, holding onto the land of her ancestors with a grip that neither time nor the desperate pleas of her own son could loosen. She pulled her thick whereupon shawl tighter around her frail shoulders. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked, a slow, methodical heartbeat in the silent room. Her gaze drifted to the window. Beyond the glass, the darkness was absolute, save for the faint, rhythmic sweep of the Bresse lighthouse cutting through the sea fret. Then another sound, a crunch of boots on the gravel outside. Mima froze. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the feral cats that sometimes sought shelter under the eaves. It was a heavy, deliberate step. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice raspy but firm. She wasn't a woman given to easy fright. She had lived through the war, through the treacherous nights of the Shetland bus, through the loss of her husband. Silence answered her. She slowly pushed herself up from the chair, her joints protesting. She moved toward the narrow hallway, her eyes darting to the old wooden cupboard where she kept the shotgun. It hadn't been fired in years, but the cold, heavy steel of it was a comfort she suddenly craved. "Is that you?" she called again, a sliver of uncertainty finally piercing her bravado. "Joseph?" The front door rattled. A shadow blocked the sliver of moonlight bleeding through the frosted glass. Mima's hand reached for the doorknob, hesitation warring with defiance. Then came the deafening roar. The glass shattered inward, a storm of jagged diamonds. The sheer force of the blast threw Mima backward, the world erupting into blinding white light and the sharp, metallic stench of curdite. She hit the floor, the sound of the wind rushing in through the broken door, mingling with the final, fading beat of her own heart. And then there was only the wind. Chapter 1: The Remains of the Morning. Detective Inspector Jimmy Perez woke to the sound of chaos. "Dad! Dad! Dad!" The voice belonged to his stepdaughter, Cassie, and it carried the distinct, frantic pitch of a teenager who was about to miss the morning ferry. Jimmy groaned, burying his face in the pillow for a fleeting second before the reality of single parenthood dragged him upward. The air in the house was freezing. The ancient boiler had given up sometime in the night again. He stumbled out of bed, running a hand through his dark, unruly hair. "I'm up, Cass! I'm up!" He found her in the hallway, a whirlwind of school bags, half-eaten toast, and exasperation. She looked so much like her mother that sometimes it caught Jimmy off guard. A sharp pain beneath his ribs that he had learned to live with. "Have you got everything?" Jimmy asked, trying to inject some authority into his sleep-graveled voice. He picked up a stray mitten from the floor. "You got your gloves? Your homework?" Cassie spun around, her school tie hanging loose, glaring at the mitten as if it had personally offended her. "What do you think this is, Dad?" "A fashion choice. It was Norse mythology this week. We had to build a longboat out of lolly sticks, and it's crumbling." "Right. Don't be cheeky," Jimmy muttered, helping her balance the fragile, glue-smeared wooden structure on top of her textbooks. "Just get your coat on." "Well, don't pretend like you're organized," she shot back, though there was a fond smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "We're 15 minutes late already. The ferry won't wait. And if I'm late for Mr. Henderson's class again, he's going to make me recite the entire lineage of Odin. We'll make it," Jimmy promised, grabbing his own coat. The heavy, dark wool felt like armor. The drive to the Lerwick Ferry Terminal was a blur of gray skies and biting rain.